Hi, I'm Mario Guerra, the two-time former mayor of the great city of Downey. And I'm here today with my co-host, Zurich Lewis, the Cerritos College Board trustee. And you're listening, Talking Politics with Mario and Zurich. Hi, folks. On there, welcome to our show today. There's a lot of things going on in the political world, even though we're not even in elections right now. But everybody's setting up for elections for next year.
It's already starting.
It's already starting,
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. So how you been?
I've been well. It's been a couple weeks since I've been on the show, and a lot has happened locally, nationally, and so I'm really looking forward to really diving into it.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. You've got the governor's race, a lot of things going on, the governor's budget, the great big beautiful tax bill, foreign policy, the California stuff on there. So tell me, so what do you think about the governor's race in California, even though we're a year and a half away?
Yeah, and I always like to call this the shadow boxing phase, right? Even before people officially file to run for something, it's always, a boxing in the background of saying, no, let me get the leverage, let me get the donations, let me get the endorsements all lined up beforehand before it becomes public. And so, of course, the big elephant that has not yet gone in the room, or donkey, because she's a Democrat, of course, we're the elephants, right, is Kamala Harris.
Right.
And so, there's been some chatter about her making a decision sometime soon, and any rollout will come around Labor Day of this upcoming year. But to kind of head off that entrance, Antonio Villaraigosa, otherwise known as Tony Villar, has made his official public exhortation, let's just say, to have Kamala Harris and Javier Becerra show their accountability as to how much they were or were not complicit in the cover-up of President Biden's decline. And so, big jabs. And that's a very good move on his part to bring his name into the news, which is
do you
the
think he'll
most important.
alienate some Democrats, though? Because remember the big thing is the Democratic primary, okay?
Yeah.
So when that happens in March on this, so you think maybe, I think
like
he's
rude
not going to do that kind of thing?
Rude? Well, politics is a blood sport. And you know that very well.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything called rude, at least in the 21st century in politics. So, the people that he would, in theory, be alienating probably wouldn't vote for him anyway.
Right.
The people that are, let's just say the pearl clutchers, the people who would otherwise be, 100% pro-Biden are already going to vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
They're already going to vote for, even Katie Porter, right?
Yeah.
They're not predisposed to vote for Villaraigosa, right? So I think that he's trying to just increase his name recognition overall to say, hey, remember me.
Yeah, they're all fighting for air. They need some air there to get it to get fueled on there. And they've all said something like she shouldn't wait. Either you're running or not running. They've even criticized her decision to try to wait it out. That in itself is something.
Yeah. It's a very, very crowded Democratic side, not to mention the two Republicans, at least major Republicans that have announced. So, between, your Kounalakis, Katie Porter, Tony Thurmond, Betty Yee, and, Katie, everybody else, Tony Villar and Javier Becerra, right? That's already 7 candidates, 6 or 7 candidates that are out there.
And some of them have pretty decent fundraising ability or pretty decent, name recognition. I think the Republicans have Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco are the 2 Republicans with some name ID.
Right.
By the way, we're going to have Steve Hilton's going to be on the show in a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about his book, Califailure, which lists, when you list these things in the back of this, it's like, it is called Reversing the Ruin of America's Worst Run State. Highest poverty rate, highest unemployment rate, worst homelessness crisis, highest housing costs, lowest home ownership, highest taxes, highest electricity prices, highest gas wars, worst gas prices, worst business climate, lowest job growth, and lowest income growth. And for the first time ever, California lost a representative in Congress. Anyways, it says a lot there.
Of course.
So that's what, but, we're such a democratically, populated state. It's interesting, though, when you still look at the maps, it's the Bay Area and the LA Bay Area on there. Everybody else has really changed colors, right? The rest of the state. This last election showed that you just have such a population in those cities that it's kind of hard on there. So you got to reach the big city people and stuff. So we'll see how he wants to do it or how he's planning to. Going back to Kamala Harris. So she's a unique spot. So if, first of all, she's on record defending him the whole time. Oh, I was in there, sharp as attack, and all for the last couple of years. Oh, there's nothing wrong with him and the whole bit, right? So she's on record. There's a million tapes for that, right, showing that. So she's already taken that position. And then the other option is, oh, wow, you didn't know? So you really weren't close to him. So either way, either you kept it a secret from the American people, his degenerative decline, if you will, or you lied to everybody. So, or you weren't close to him. So which one is it? There's no good answer for her.
No, and there really isn't. And so there was. It was on display for this last campaign that there wasn't a lot of substance behind what her campaign was, and there won't be if she decides to run for California governor, because what are you going to say? Oh, we need to change things. Oh, we need to have more democratic, one party rule continuance, right? There's a lot of just compartmentalization to realize that what you're saying is not what the truth is.
Right.
And, obviously politicians lie. Who'd have thought?
Right. Yeah.
But, it's just name recognition.
So, by the
That's
way,
all it is.
So it's interesting how they all trying to take a position and out of the norm. So Governor Newsom seems to be going towards the middle because he's running for out of the state of California. He figures he's got California done, right?
Right.
So he's running more towards the middle. So in his budget now, he says, oh, we can't afford health care for, the aliens, illegal aliens, and so forth. That was his big thing, right? Billions of dollars. Everybody should have health care kind of thing. Those were the answers on there. So now he's taking that away. So Javier Becerra is saying, no, we cannot do that. So he's taking an opposite position than the governor is. And now people at least know, wow, he's going in that direction. What do you think on that?
Yeah, and the Latino Legislative Caucus, which is only Democrats, and they specifically will not let the 6, almost 8, Latino Republicans in there because they don't want.
Although they did start their own caucus.
They did start their own caucus, and good for them. That they should.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did. But the Latino Legislative Caucus, really the Democrats, have said, oh, well, you know what we need to do? Raise taxes. That's what Democrats are good at. They raise taxes because all you need is just one more tax, and all your problems will be solved. And that's what we've been, sold on homelessness for the longest time.
The 10 years in California.
And so, that lack of accountability and the lack of fiscal discipline has put us, where we're at. And so, if you want to say you're socialist and you say you want to be communist, then go ahead and go out and say it, and be truthful in what you're campaigning on. But, ultimately saying, oh, we're going to fix everyone's problems, we're going to do everything, but we just need a little more money from... And it's only going to be the rich. But the rich is a very broad definition for a lot of the Democratic.
Especially when it's sales tax on there. We're just going to add the sales tax, a little bit of the property tax. So this is noticed that 2 days ago with my wife. So we're redoing our kitchen, okay? And we need to, now we're looking at the granite marble tile, whatever, for the island and the kitchen counters and stuff. So our contractor sent us to different places, and one of them was in Anaheim, right? Mm-hmm. So the price that we got, and finally yesterday we had to place the order, and my wife was looking at the receipt and everything else. We saved $350 on the total order because the place was in Anaheim versus LA County, because their taxes are a lot less. So we literally saved $350, and we didn't think about it. We didn't go to Orange County to save money,
right?
And we went there because that's where our guy told us the good marbles at, and we liked it there, right?
And that's
we went
true.
To a couple of places.
It is over there.
Yeah. So we liked it, and we just got a side benefit as in Orange County.
Yeah, you just
So-
look at that 7% tax versus your
Yeah.
10.25%.
Yeah.
Or now 10.5 even, I think, here.
So folks, that county line actually saves you money on there. It shouldn't, especially when we're so close. I mean, we're 15 miles away from there, from
Yeah.
where we're sitting right now. But
Yeah.
anyways, okay, so the California budget, I'm always amazed at how, it's 10 million, now it's 40, it's 30, we got it under control, it's just games. It's just games that they're playing, and you really don't know until the day before when they have to sign it. And
Yeah.
so what
even
are your thoughts?
even the legislators don't know.
Yeah.
The legislators that are up in the budget committee, you have your markups, you have your back and forth all the way up until it's always been even just as recently, up until the day of. You'll stay up till midnight and then they'll just pass whatever budget, and then you find out, like Nancy Pelosi famously said, we have to pass the bill to find out what's in it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't only affect your average everyday Californian too, but
Right.
as a member of the community college board, we're always seen as a lesser priority than the Cal States and the UCs. That even though we serve more people,
Right.
even though we have that much more accessibility, and even though we have that much more success
Right.
with the students who
Right.
can then go into college and career success,
Right.
we're given less of a priority because here's these research grants, here's this four-year university, here's that, and it's just such a massive administrative bloat at the UCs and Cal States that it ends up affecting the educational pathways that are available to students who can just pay $46 a unit.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And so,
It's crazy.
we have to, hopefully, and we don't have a plan on ever cutting back anything, because that's not the case as of right now, because we've been, very good with our budget, at least at Cerritos.
Yeah.
But, you see at the K through 12 level, a lot of unified school districts are cutting significant amount of employees. I just saw yesterday Santa Ana Unified had to cut 262, 292 teachers and classified staff. I mean, that's just absolute disaster, right? And part of that, a lot of people like to say, that's just declining enrollment. Well, our population is aging, this and that, whatever. But that's just such an easy cop-out for leaders who don't want to actually solve a problem, who don't actually want to look anything further than what their own reelection has.
Right.
So
we've been very successful here. I'm proud. Obviously, I'm former Mayor Downey. I'm proud of Downey Unified School District.
Very.
We've had Dr. John Garcia leading us for quite a while.
He's been a great partner for us at Cerritos.
Yeah, for Cerritos on there, and for so many different things here. His sidekick, and I call him that. He's not a sidekick, because he's my friend. Okay, I consider him my friend. Is Dr. Roger Brosmer.
And former mayor, too.
Their former mayor. I baptized one of his kids.
There you go.
We've been friends for many years. Him and I, served on the Columbia Committee, on the downtown subcommittee. We did a lot of things together when we were in office together. So I consider him a dear friend, top educator. Anyways, he just got the promotion. He will be taking over Dr. Garcia's position, which is awesome. It's stability. It's a little different energy level, but the Downey Unified has been, they've had the classes, going what do you call it when they go to your
dual enrollment?
Dual enrollment classes.
Early college, a number of different names.
They have all these career tracks, from being a chef to being, police on there to being
teacher track.
We've got
a lot.
I'm amazed when I go to their schools on there, and they've had 2 new JROTCs. I went to Warren High School's graduation one on Friday in their second year. Oh my God, they got a lady, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, Melissa Gardner, and that place is on fire. They're doing great things. But it took leadership. Not a lot of school districts want an JROTC, which is all about leadership. It's not about recruiting on there, and it shows discipline. Anyway, bottom line, I'm real proud. I know they'll continue to work well with you. And Dr. Garcia, you did a great job. Dr. Brosmer, you're my buddy, and I hope your morale is well. We served together on the Columbia Memorial Space Board today, even to today. We're trying to build a new building for the Inspiration Shuttle. So anyways, all right, so let's change tracks. Let's go to local governments. So The quarter of corruption. You and I are in the quarter. We're a little bit more removed, but the quarter of corruption. So, I'm sad because Huntington Park is where I grew up. It was a good city. I went to Miles Gage, Huntington Park High School. The goal was always to move to Downey.
Sure, right.
Which I did when I was 18 years old, right after graduation. Bought my first house in Downey for $55,000.
Yeah.
Put $5,000 down.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful era.
It is a beautiful.
Yeah.
But Huntington Park, I was real proud of it. And then now they continued. They stain just like the rest of the Southeast cities because they have their hands out and the corruption on there. So Huntington Park, $20 million pool, aquatic center. They passed it, been 5 years, nothing's been done. The consultants and some of the council have their hands in the kitty there. They bring in a new lawyer now because the one lawyer quit, and which is
that's a sign, if anything.
That's another thing, yeah. So they brought in Andrew Saraga, and has no city manager experience. He was in La Mirada City Council. They wouldn't make him mayor for 9 years. They finally felt sorry for him. They make him mayor, and then he quits 6 months into it to run for Anaheim Council. Bigger city and stuff like that, have their own issues, ethics issues, but he gets clobbered, he gets beat up, right? So he's got the city manager in Huntington Park that coincidentally lives in Downey. Okay, he's got him as a client. So now they hired them as the city attorney in Huntington Park. He's got no city attorney experience, but okay, that doesn't matter. He does. I think he is for Bellflower Unified.
He was, he was at Bellflower Unified for a while.
So he sues the city of Downey because we're violating the Voters' Rights Act because we have 4 districts and 1 citywide one. We've done it that way for the 70 years of incorporation. But he sues, and what happens with those? He keeps asking for his money. Win or lose, when you file on those things, I just heard this the other day. They get paid. He's going to get paid no matter what. So just by filing that, saying that we're in violation, which we're not, our council caved. The council shouldn't have done it. Thanks for Mayor Hector Sosa for pushing back. But the rest of them caved. Oh, it's going to cost money. No, it's not. They're doing the right thing is always the right thing. Anyway, don't get me going. I already did a show.
That's a whole nother episode.
I already did
I'm
an
sure
episode
you did like 3
that.
or 4 on
oh
that.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
And it's going to change the course of our city forever because of this sleaze bucket guy and our council not having the guts to do the right thing.
Not that you have an opinion.
Not that I have an opinion, but the thing is, people say, "Oh, I'm still involved." Well, I live here. I put my chops in here. I put my time and effort and sweat and tears and dirt, picked up dirt. So now, yes, I'm out of office, but I care. And my grandkids are playing in the Little League where I coached and helped build, So I do care. And when you're going to elect bad city councils because of this new district, and you're not going to be able to take the real talent from throughout the city, you're not going to know that for 5 to 7 years. And then I don't care to say I told you so, but it'll be so obvious. That's how we got the Catherine Alvarez's of the world that we had to recall. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Off the high horse. So, Huntington Park, corridor corruption. They bring in this sleazy lawyer. They're trying to do all this stuff. But then, with all eyes on the city, they hire Mario Beltran, and they try to sneak it in there on an emergency order thing to pay him $30,000 to start on this consulting gig, which I don't know what he's going to consult there, So, and just in the past history, I'm not, I'm going to be careful not to get sued for misleading people, but he was a council member in Bellflower. He got caught, and this is in the papers, got caught at a hooker hotel, and he was drunk, and he dropped his council badge, and the hooker kept it. And the next day, when he was sort of sober, he turned in a police report that it got stolen, and the police ruled it and found that obviously it wasn't stolen. They got the whole case. The DA prosecutes him. He pleads guilty. He got things like he couldn't run for office again and that kind of stuff. So he got admonished. Recently working with the guy from Compton on the marijuana thing, and I think it was Baldwin Park. And if it wasn't Baldwin Park, then Baldwin Park, I'm sorry. But anyways, he continues that track at least. When he became the deputy right after that of Calderon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Roger Prosper and I and our whole council, he comes to the council meeting to introduce himself, and we said, we don't want you here, And we actually called the Calderon's office and stuff. Calderon, I'll never forget this. Roger and I were walking out of the chamber, we're in the back, and Calderon screaming and yelling at Roger and I, because he also wanted a meeting with us, and Roger and I didn't want. And he says, this is a quote, direct quote from Calderon before he went to jail. Okay?
This is Ron or Tom?
This one is Ron.
Ron Calderon.
Ron.
Yeah, okay.
Ron. Tom was in on it.
That's okay.
And he said, he goes, I have pissed more times in your city than you've been alive. And Roger starts laughing, and we both, and he said to the phone, how old are you? But I'll never forget that. We just didn't want anything to do with Mario Beltran at our council meeting on there.
That's good.
Anyway, so now he's there. So folks, that's the one thing in your local cities, you're blessed. You live in La Mirada, you got a stable council, you got a good city manager. I'm blessed. We do have a really good city manager here. I miss Gilbert Levis, but Roger Bradley, our city manager, top-notch, ethical people, hardworking.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
And I think that a lot of cities like ours, La Mirada, Downey, even Whittier,
yeah.
a lot of people truly take for granted how much competence is so necessary
Absolutely.
to have a decent city, to have your roads paved,
Absolutely.
to have no corruption, to have not have to deal with major settlements and lawsuits and what have you.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so important. That's why we're involved in what we're doing, because there's so much better things that we could be doing, going out fishing, going out hanging with our kids, but we have to sacrifice. People like us have to sacrifice in order to be able to keep the legacy of what cities like Downey, La Mirada, and Whittier, have going, and others too. And so, that's why it's so important for us to be able to help people and to provide a structure and support for those who want to be able to run for city councils and be involved in these local races, because you often have the best people who could be on these city councils don't have the time, don't have the support to be able to get on and to get elected to that, and so that's on us.
And now in the city of Downey, they may not live in the right district. You can got 3 great people in this district that one of them could have run in the citywide one, and now they can't. They have to run in the middle one there, where all the apartments are. Anyway, so
yes,
absolutely. And, we do it because we love our community. I'm always holding my breath. I don't so much with our city management now, but just a couple years ago when we had some disturbing things happening, you worry about if our city, my city is on the 6 o'clock news, then that's me. That's a reflection of me. And every time something does happen, because inevitably you can't stop certain things on there, but I didn't want it to be a systemic thing, that it was an issue there, and it was an ethical issue. So when I left office, I made myself the promise, I want to be very vigilant on the council people, and I want to call them out. That's one of the reasons for the podcast, the Talking Downey podcast, is I want to be able to have a way to call them out in the city to be able, the residents, to hear. Okay, here's what I think, at least. Make up your own minds, but call them. So, all right, let's shift gears. Let's talk about, you and I were talking earlier about a couple of things. President Trump in the Middle East. We were talking about the big, beautiful tax bill.
Yes, all the national news.
Today and tomorrow on the national news. And then, of course, the Pope, with our new Pope, a Chicago White Sox fan. It's kind of interesting. So what do you think about the Pope? I'm Catholic. I know you're not. But what did you think?
No, I think, the Pope is a representative of Christianity, whether you agree with every Catholic doctrine or not. There's some you might call Protestants, non-denominational, whatever you want to call it. People who aren't Catholic but otherwise would be Christian. Okay? So, because definitions matter.
Yeah.
So, as someone who is not Catholic, and I've had quite a bit of heritage of a lot of my family being Catholic. I want him to succeed. I want him to be a great representation of what it means to love Jesus Christ and to call him Lord and Savior. And so, to be that representative and saying, hey, here is one of the ways that you can follow Christ and believe in, what I've come to understand is like salvific minimalism, right? The minimal amount of doctrines in order to be considered a Christian. And we can talk about that another day. But, I am very grateful that, that we have a Pope that loves Jesus, that cares about the traditions of the Catholic Church, and wants to be a great representative. And what's really surreal too, like even being not Catholic and watching what the Pope says and having the different masses and whatever other rituals there may be, to hear him speaking in plain American English during a service is just very surreal to see. It's not Latin, right? It's not a Tridentine Mass or anything, but even in the Novus Ordo, right? The vernacular of an American with a little bit of a Chicago accent there too. It's just like very relatable. To see at least for an American and even most people, because nowadays the whole reason why the Roman Catholic Church speaks in Latin is because that was the lingua franca, right? The main language at the time in the Roman Empire.
Right.
Fast forward 2,000 years,
right.
What most people speak in the world nowadays is English.
English, yeah. And people say, we got to go back to, the
Vatican I.
And all this stuff, and go back to. That land. Well, Jesus didn't speak that.
Jesus did not speak Latin.
He spoke Aramaic,
and
everything else.
Koine
and
Greek
Vatican,
and all that,
Vatican II changed that. We're supposed to now speak the language, And you know what? What's interesting in Los Angeles? Los Angeles Archdiocese is huge, over 300 parishes. Every Sunday, there's masses celebrated in over 350 different languages.
Yeah,
I couldn't even name you more than 50.
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. So that's great. In the old days, the priest would have his back to the assembly, and now he's turned around on there, and we're active participants, if you will.
Yeah,
so,
and that's excellent.
So no, I just never thought, like everybody else, never thought we'd have a American Pope. This man, had gone to college, was raised a good Catholic. He got a scholarship to Harvard, was going to Harvard, had his whole life, and then decided to go to Peru as a missionary. Yeah. He didn't go in to live in fancy houses or even, beautiful cathedrals and stuff. He was among the people for 20 some odd years, and then was made the bishop and so forth. So he put his times in. It's really interesting to me. I've seen pictures now. He went to Holguin, Cuba. He went to where I was born.
I didn't know that.
And he went to Puerto Padre, which is a fishing village where my mom grew up, and it was a lot poorer even than Holguin. Mm-hmm. So when he went there about 10 years ago, his order house, usually that was being worked on there behind the parish. Yeah. So a family took him in for the 3 days he was there. So he lived in, this young man's bedroom, taking care of, he was a bishop, but, now he's the Pope. And so it's like, he slept in this bedroom, in Holguin, Cuba, which is amazing. Yeah. So anyways, there's all these great stories, and his brothers are now famous. I saw the guy from ABC when the national media met with him last week, and he went up to him. He goes, "You made my brothers, celebrities now. And how did you get to my brother?" He didn't mean it in a bad way,
right? Yeah.
So evidently, President Trump brought it up in his news conference on there. I guess one of the brothers is a big MAGA fan.
Yes.
And I thought that, who knew?
Yeah.
Who cared before, right? But it's kind of interesting to see these two normal guys that are playing Wordle the day before the conclave starts with their brother,
Yep.
So I think you'll see some of the same thing. The name is very important, Pope Leo, taking the Pope Leo name. Because when I was in the seminary, Pope Leo, we had to read the encyclical that he did in the late 1800s, and it was the first, he's considered the grandfather of social justice, if you will, from the Catholic Church by putting that out there, writing that encyclical. So it was interesting he wanted to take that name. Yeah. He's considered probably, arguably one of the better popes, Pope Leo.
Yeah,
the
the other
13th.
Leo, one of the other Leos is not so great, Leo the 10th.
Well, Leo the 10th, but the 13th, the last one.
Yes,
So,
the most recent one.
Yeah. So,
Leo the first was pretty good, too.
So, yes, that's a long time ago, yeah.
Right,
So, but anyway, so it's kind of interesting. So, yes, I'm happy as a Catholic. He wasn't on my radar just because I thought, okay, there's no way it's going to be an American.
Yeah.
But it's worked down there. So we'll see. I think the world will be better for it. I really do.
Yeah.
I think Pope Francis started a lot of different things. I think Pope Leo is going to continue some of those things and maybe be a little bit more pragmatic on there. But I don't know. I'm happy.
Yeah.
We got a good holy man there.
Yeah.
And that can lead it. Just the fact that they're talking about hosting the Ukraine and Russian thing. I mean, that would be awesome. I mean, and he wants to put an end to the war. So whatever political clout he has, anyways.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
I'm
It's all good.
excited as
as
what you may term a Protestant.
Yeah.
I'm very excited and very
Yeah.
hopeful and
Yeah.
wish nothing but the best for him.
Yeah. So we're excited.
Yeah.
Excited. So, anyways, okay, we've been all over the world. We've been all over. You want to talk anything about and finish off with President Trump in the Middle East? What are
Yeah,
your
well,
thoughts
I
on
mean,
that?
we'll see. There's been a lot more movement to be more Arab friendly and not just completely 100% in favor of Netanyahu, and whatever may have been said behind closed doors. I think that President Trump being the consummate deal maker, whether you like the way that his deals turn out or not, it's always about trying to make some good maneuvers, and often they do work out. Whether it's a masterminded scheme or it's just the Lord showing favor to him.
Well, the senator yesterday against Secretary Rubio. I'm sorry. Every time I listen to Secretary Rubio, he speaks with such conviction, and he knows his stuff. And I
Right.
believe what he's saying. And I agree with what he's saying. So in that argument with the senator from Maryland yesterday, and he says, because the senator was criticizing him for not saying what happened on these closed meetings with all these other countries. He goes,
Right.
why would I tell you that?
Right.
He goes, if I told you that, nobody else would ever talk to us again. So that's part of, negotiations, and that's part of foreign policy. And he said that nobody can tell the United States President and Secretary of State what the foreign policy should be. The Congress can't do it. The Supreme Court can't do it. What foreign policy? I mean, I'm talking about
Right.
how to, so.
That's an executive branch function.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly on there. So I just thought that was pretty interesting to see and hear. And you know what, those Middle East outreach, who knows? I mean, the problem always is that those countries have not treated their own citizens properly. When you go to Saudi Arabia,
That
the
would be
women,
an understatement.
Yeah, women couldn't even
Yeah.
drive until recently. There have been some bad things happen on
Yeah.
it. But I guess you can keep fighting, or you can try to work towards that and kind of hold your nose a little bit, and see what they can do. There was a lot of deals that made $1 trillion. From American companies were bought by Saudi Arabia and Qatar and stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know
even-
if you feel like you're selling
even
out.
Pokemon Go is now owned by a Saudi-owned company called Scopely.
Yeah,
So,
That-
so there's definitely been a lot of change and a lot more investment.
Scares me that you know that.
Yeah, well, as someone who plays very frequently,
Oh, how funny.
it's
Oh,
actually
how
been
funny.
for the better,
How funny.
quite
that
frankly.
is. Well, great.
But yeah,
Well, listen, we've been all over the place on there, and I think I want to wrap it up on there. Any final things you'd like to get in about what's going on? I mean,
Yeah.
here we are. We're talking, the week before Memorial Day, and normally you wouldn't have a lot of political things in May 2025, but it's all politics these days.
it's always is, and always politics is local, as a former speaker said. So we always have to be vigilant, and this is the kind of time that we start gearing up for those 2026 elections and start looking at people and understanding, so and so's termed out, and these are what the districts are going to be. Who can we recruit to run for these particular places? And I look forward to talking to Steve Hilton in the future and saying, like, hey, look, you've got a book and it outlines everything we know of why California is, but why are you the one person to win a race? Because it's not enough to make the case for something, because
Right.
in a state of 40 million people,
Right.
39 million of them are not going to hear what
Yeah.
you have to say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Those are good questions, Steve. If you're watching, or your staff
Your
is
staff,
watching that
yeah.
on there, those would be great. And yeah, I mean, we're user friendly here.
Very, yeah.
And I've read his book on there, so we're cheering for change.
Of course, yes.
We're Califailure. What a great name on there. We all know that we love this state. Okay, I'm not moving anywhere.
Me neither.
I'd rather stay here and fight. Today it's going to be 80 degrees outside in the middle of May. We love our lives in here, so it's worth fighting for. And I'm glad that he
really
and
is.
some other ones are.
Yes.
But we just have to change. We can't be as goofy as recently, folks.
Yeah.
There was fights up there whether soliciting a 17 and 16-year-old
Yes.
prostitute or not on there was going to be a misdemeanor or felony. Anything else underneath that was, and people were like, what? A 16-year-old, if I solicit her, and it's only going to be a misdemeanor or a slap on the wrist. The 15-year-old is a felony, but not the 16.
Right,
Come
prosecutorial
on.
discretion, and they had to create this, the sausage making of legislation to say, well, to placate the more progressive wing of the party. Well, it's going to be
Senator
16
Wiener.
or 17. Well,
Yeah.
Senator Wiener for one, but
Yeah.
Mark Gonzalez of Montebello or L.A. wherever.
Yeah.
He was one of the top people fighting for
He was
not.
He was the
adopting.
goofy guy. He was the guy that was the L.A. Democratic Party chair, and then took over Santiago's.
Santiago. Exactly. That's the one.
But I cannot believe it, folks. It's crazy because. Wait a second. I forgot the analogy, but it was like such a needle in the haystack if that happened. If you had an 18-year-old boyfriend with a 16-year-old girlfriend and whatever his life should. Okay. Put
right.
parameters in there, but
that doesn't happen in real life.
No, this was really, really bad, and the Democrats led that way. That Mark Gonzalez of the world, Assemblyman Scott Wiener, etc., and even the other Dems, and even Governor Newsom weighed in. No, this is wrong.
Yeah, even Rob Bonta said. Even Rob Bonta, our Attorney General,
our Governor, and Democrats, you guys are off the rocker. I'm glad the Republicans, James Gallagher, Brian Jones, the Republican leadership up there, they stood up for this. And it's some Dems that I've been heard, they talk on the side, what a stupid issue for us to try to defend, us being Democrats.
Yes, right.
And the media took it and actually saw through it this is stupid. This is really, really bad. You're defending bad people.
And now they're on record. A lot of Democrats in tough seats had to go on record to vote against making it a very clear felony for 16 and 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of a failure of leadership, honestly, for the speaker to force a vote that way. And I don't know if there was some other play in the background, but they would say, oh, it's the legislature's intent to make it a felony. And then we'll look at the issue later. It's like, what do you have to study?
Yeah.
You don't have anything to study. Don't make it an intent. Don't give the prosecutors discretion as to whether to make a felony or not. Be tough on the rule of law.
If you're soliciting
that's
somebody
it.
for sex at 16-year-old, that should be a felony. It's like if 15-year-old's a felony, a 16-year-old should be a felony. Anyway, So okay, Califailure.
That's and the last thing too is that I just found out that there is a new select committee on alternative protein innovation.
Okay.
And this is being headed up by Assemblymember Ash Kalra up in the Bay Area, and it just got created a couple days ago.
Okay.
But apparently, it's been something that he's wanted to push about, how to have more vegan stuff, how to have more tofu, and whatever. And this really just exemplifies why we should not be having a full-time legislature, because they find problems that don't exist and create solutions that aren't necessary. And that's why why we have Califailure, because there's a failure to focus on the most important issues. Why do we need to be spending legislative resources on something that should be a business innovation?
Right.
The government shouldn't be telling me you need to eat more tofu, you need to eat more whatever star jackfruit or something like that, right, as a protein alternative.
California,
I don't need that.
Make it business friendly, meaning everybody has a fair chance on there. Protect our kids and our families, and help us with educating our kids. those are the mainstays of what the government should be doing. Protect us and help us educate our kids,
Yeah.
and let us have a fair playing field when it comes to our businesses. That's it. I mean, everything else, fall from that. So
Right.
anyway. All right. Well, thank you. Listen, it's been great.
Always a pleasure.
We hadn't talked in a while on there. So, folks, I know that this was a little bit longer. But listen, we welcome your questions. We welcome your thoughts. Feel free to call me, 562-706-4114, 562-706-4114. And I want to thank my co-host today, Zurich Lewis, bright young young man on there that's got a growing family, been in politics. He's been in office for over 10 years, and he's only 31. And at the Cerritos College Board of Trustees, got his passion in it. I can tell your dad's the mayor of La Mirada too.
Yep.
They got some Cuban background, so there's a little bit of favoritism there.
That's right.
But that's okay. He's still a good young man. We got to go to Florida restaurant.
Yes, please. I love that
I
place.
I went there the other day.
Churrasco, man.
Oh,
Churrasco, ropa vieja. It's the most authentic place. I mean, you would know more than I, but
yeah. They catered my mom's funeral.
Oh, they did? Okay.
That's how much I like their food and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Folks, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching on there. Please let us know what you'd like to hear about. This is the Talking Politics portion show. We have a Talking Downey that's more local centric. And please feel free to reach out to us and let us know your thoughts. And we welcome your comments. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talking Politics with Mayor Mario and Zurich Lewis.